All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in. I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Trisha Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Welcome, Cubs, to Fangirls Going Rogue. I am one of your hosts, Teresa Delgado, and with me, as always, are my amazing friends, Sarah Woloski from Skywalking Through Neverland. How are you doing? It's December.
I did realize it because all of a sudden my schedules got insanely busy. So it's December. There's a Star Wars movie coming out. It's just crazy.
So one thing I know you've been doing recently is you've been sewing Santa bellies. How's that?
That is very true. I didn't know what the heck I was doing at first, and I don't have a sewing machine that can handle like lots of foam. So I found a way to do it that works, and I made 3.5 Santa bellies. Yes, a couple days ago. It was pretty fun. And now we have nice fat Santas.
And Trisha Barr from Fairgirl Blog, you have been writing a new ride. We're going to talk about that later, but how's the new horse and all the fun things?
Well, it's finally Florida weather time. It's not too hot. It's perfect. We love it. And I'm ready to, 2019 went by really fast. So I feel like it's here, the end, episode 9. All sorts of things. Too much to talk about almost.
Mm-hmm. It's true. How's your horse?
My horse is perfect, right? He has to be.
Yes. And I did see something from you the other day. I think it was one of the Baby Yoda memes where it had something to do with Baby Yoda and something to do with a horse and ramen or something. And you were like, all my loves all together. And I'm like, what? Ramen?
Well, it's the sipping tea or bone broth or whatever Baby Yoda is sipping. And that's just become from episode 4. That's just become such a meme. But it was, sipping on my ramen noodles while my horse chomps. Or I think it was like steps on the green hay I bought, because they always do that. You buy in this really nice hay, you think it's the best thing ever. And they're like, I'm going to poopeth on this. That's awesome. So I'm starving and eating ramen noodles so my horse can have fancy hay and he doesn't want it. Is basically.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The Baby Yoda memes have been crazy. I've been saving a ton of them. I think my most recent favorite one is when Baby Yoda's like looking up he's looking sad. And it's when it says, when they forget to include your sauce for your chicken nuggies. Hilarious. So there's actually an account on Instagram. I think it's baby.yoda memes. And it's fabulous.
And you're stalking it.
It just shows I like a lot of them, so I guess the algorithm there's so many. They just keep showing up all over the place.
When you like things, they will come up in your timeline.
Yeah.
I like all the ones with the music where he's
the
switches and the different music comes in. I don't know. There's been so many good ones that I have a hard time picking.
The Africa Toto one is pretty darn good. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, people who got creative about that.
Oh, there was a Last Christmas one.
Oh,
yeah, that was a good one too.
Wow.
So Teresa, you've been having some fun with your Advent calendars.
I have. So December started, and I do have a couple of videos to go up here probably once we're done with this. But yes, I have the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar 2019 and the Lego Harry Potter Advent Calendar. So far, the builds for the Star Wars one have been pretty good. Luna, my cat, you guys usually hear on the show, she has taken possession of Kylo Ren's shuttle. I have no idea where it is now. But it's a pretty sturdy build, I can say, because it holds up to a cat swatting it around all over the place. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's meaning she's like a fan of Kylo Ren and a dark side cat, or if she doesn't like him. I can't decide what that means. What's the symbolism there? But there's only been one build in the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar that I had no idea what it was. And I think it was like the Resistance Troop Transport or something, because I had to look it up. Yeah, so my cat makes frequent appearances in the videos. They are on the Fangirls Going Rogue YouTube channel, so be sure to check in, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and share it, because they're getting pretty funny. So the cat has discovered that it's fun time.
Yes, I love your cat's appearances in there. Luna is she's a scene stealer.
She is. She sure is. Well, we actually had someone share in our Facebook group today this video, and I kind of go between being really sad and then also being really like, this is funny for John Boyega, because apparently he's sick right now doing press circuit stuff, and there's this video of him, and he just, this is like the worst time to get sick right now if you're starting to do press for a film. So there's this one point in the video where he's laying down, he has his head on the table, and he's just like signing so lethargic, and they pull the poster out from under his hand, and then he signs again, and they just pull it out. He's like, oh my gosh.
You have to feel for him, because I think he's like a one-man marketing machine anyway. Just how much enthusiasm he's put into the whole just tweeting about his role and putting up different memes and videos and stuff like that, and then to not feel good. I want to give him a hug.
Oh, I'll join you in that hug.
I want to give him a hug, because I was diagnosed with a sinus infection right before I had to go to Disney. And you know how that is when you're like, I'm trying to muster all the energy in the world and be excited, and my body is just saying no.
Yes, definitely know how that is. And I'm so sorry, Trisha. But we're going to talk about your experience a little later in this episode.
We're going to talk about yours, too. You got to be near John Boyega and Oscar Isaac. I'm so jealous.
Yes, and he didn't look sick at all.
Well, I said this in our private chat. You guys were like, look, here's my stuff from this, and here's my stuff from this. And I'm like, here's a picture of a cat sitting on me, because I have nothing exciting going on except advent calendars.
But we love your advent calendars.
So I'm living through you guys. I was like, I feel like I need to do something fun, because they're doing so many fun things.
Oh,
you know what excited me though?
What?
Wonder Woman trailer.
Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, yes.
Woohoo!
My life hasn't been what you probably think it has. We all have our struggles.
Have you ever been in love?
A long, long time ago. You?
So many times. Yeah, all the time.
Welcome to the future. Life is good, but it can be better. And why shouldn't it be? All you need is to want it. Think about finally having everything you always wanted.
I can save today, but you can save the world.
Steve.
So I saw that this went up, and I kind of waited to watch it until I could like really focus. And I know we're going to talk about the music in this trailer, but the music is like what got me. And then a bunch of the visuals in this trailer. And we're going to talk about some things. So, if you don't want to hear, just like plug your ears for a sec. I'm sorry, but she uses her golden lasso to swing from lightning bolt to lightning bolt?
Yes.
How cool is that?
That is insanity.
And then we see her like golden eagle outfit too, which I guess is a famous, it's from comics. So I don't know where in the comics it comes from, but I was watching a trailer breakdown because that's how I learned stuff. And they were saying that was her famous golden eagle outfit, the one that she turns up in at the end with the gold wings. Looks really amazing.
There also is a nod to the TV show with the flip of the headband. She does that in the TV. That might be before your girls' time.
So she uses her headband to it's like a boomerang, right?
Yeah. And she does that in the TV show back in the day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that my trailer breakdown I watched did not say that. So awesome. We learn something every day. And also, I guess with all of this press stuff for Wonder Woman and the 1984 film, Patty Jenkins, who's the director of that film, she has revealed that she and Warner Brothers are considering a spin-off film based on the Amazon women from Wonder Woman who live on Themyscira. I am so excited about this. I tweeted about it and said, F yes, because I was so happy. I mean, it's not confirmed at all, but how cool would that be?
It would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because you go from the Princess Bride to Amazon women.
Yeah, so Trisha, you love the music in the trailer too, right?
You guys, I was a sophomore in high school in 1984.
I was not alive.
Yeah.
I was
this
3.
Was me totally jiving. Blue Monday, my dance team did a routine to it. Ooh. And to hear it, with the orchestra and just the way they, I don't know, it was totally, I'm it was way cool. It's living and if you think about it too, I was listening, I put on the 80s station on Sirius XM and I'm listening and all the songs from 1980s early to mid, just a lot of movement of that, women were starting to get empowered. That's when Madonna was first coming out, and there were just tons of songs I don't know, there was Sheena Easton song I was listening to that were just girl, get on it, be yourself, rock it. And 1984, it's just perfect.
Oh man, I wish we could all see this movie together when it comes out. How cool would that be?
And we could all hug Chris Pine.
Okay. I'm down with that. Yeah, you guys.
Secretly hoping he would be back. I mean, we had seen there were little hints of him in some footage from when they were out in the outdoors filming and I was well, maybe he's a dream or a memory. And I'm I don't know. He seems pretty real.
Yeah. I mean, we had read that he would be back. And so I don't really care how he comes back. I'm just very happy he's back. And can't wait to see Chris Pine and Wonder Woman.
And Pedro Pascal.
That's right. Because he's the bad guy. That was crazy. I saw that too in the trailer. I'm wait, who is that? Because he looks so different.
Well, it's because he doesn't have facial hair.
Yeah, and he's a totally different look for him.
Yeah, he's got blonde hair in the trailer. It's whoa.
Yeah. If you feel like going down a Pedro Pascal rabbit hole on YouTube, I think it's with Variety. He does Spanish slang. It's hilarious.
Wow. Well, we don't have a lot of news this week because we have a lot to talk about in our main show section, because on December 4th, that was a huge day in Star Wars. There was the Rise of Resistance opening at Galaxy's Edge in Walt Disney World. And Trisha, you were there for that.
Yes, I was.
And then there was also over here in LA, there was the Rise of Skywalker press conference, and I was going to that. So, woo! And meanwhile, poor Teresa is laying with her cats. But you sent us some great pictures. We loved it.
You're welcome.
All right, so, woo! December 4th was a Wednesday, and the Rise of Skywalker press conference was held at the Pasadena Convention Center, and that's where the Solo press conference was held as well. So I kind of knew where to go. It was a very rainy day here in LA, So we ran from the parking garage to the convention center and my hair got all messed up. So, oh well. Good thing this is an audio podcast. So we had so many people there, including the director, J.J. Abrams. We had Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. Sorry, Trisha.
I know, and you sat on the wrong side. You didn't talk to him beforehand and arrange so you could be like taking pictures of him. That was my message. I'm not on the right side.
I'm sorry, but I did manage to snag a spot in the front row, however.
Yes, you did. That's always hard.
Yeah, it was. I was like fighting tooth and nail for that thing. But also, I'm not even done going through this list. Kerry Russell was there. Naomi Aki, who plays Jana. Kelly Marie Tran. We had Anthony Daniels. We had Jonas Suotomo. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong because I have to practice. Also, there was Billy D. Williams, Richard E. Grant, Kathleen Kennedy, and the writer, Chris Terrio. And this was all capped off by the first person who came on stage, which was our moderator, which was Ava DuVernay. So, holy cow, she's the director, of course, of many different films. And it was just cool to see her there as well. And apparently the whole cast and Ava and, some of the people involved with the film had seen the film for the first time at at just a screening the night before. So they had just seen it the night before. Of course, we had not seen it as press. So none of our questions, none of this will be spoilery at all.
The uninformed questions. Ava also has a little bit of history with Star Wars. She gave some notes to J.J. Abrams on The Force Awakens, particularly the snow battle scene between Kylo and Rey. Ooh. She gave him some thought. So she has been a trusted advisor, had seen the movie early before The Force Awakens came out, and also had recommended Victoria Mahoney, who we talked about from the Porsche event, Women in Filmmaker. She had recommended her from her Queen Sugar series to work as the second unit director on the Rise of Skywalker. So they have a friendship, her and J.J. Abrams. So so it kind of made sense to have someone like her. And I felt like she had seen the movie based on her questioning.
Yes. Right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she had definitely seen it the night before.
One of the things I liked about her being the moderator is that she actually has a view into filmmaking from the director's seat and through the whole process, to where a lot of the things that she was commenting on, I appreciated it so much more because she actually knows. So when she's talking about the film being a beautiful film, which is one of the things she says, like, I actually believe her because she knows like what is a beautiful film and what's not, versus having somebody that's a moderator that's from, I don't know, like an press online, outlet. News press outlet or something like that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So let's dive into this press conference. What we're going to do is we're going to play some clips from the press conference that we found really cool and talk about them. So let's start at the very beginning.
So let's get started and just dive in. As the only other person to take the reins of this twice, besides Mr. Lucas, what was the difference between your first day working on Rise of Skywalker and your first day working on Force Awakens? What happened in the middle? Were you more confident? Were you just as scared? What happened?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ava, for being here. We're very lucky to have you.
Thrilled to be here.
I think the difference is that the pressures shifted. We didn't know at the beginning of Force Awakens exactly what it would look like to have Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac and John Boyega, and what would that cast be like? And we had to figure it out and discover it. The first day of Rise of Skywalker, we sort of knew some of those things. We knew those things were working. What we didn't know was everything else. And this was wrapping up, not one film, not 3 films, but 9. And so the responsibility was significant. And the movie, this is a pretty big picture. The scale of the movie is pretty enormous. And we knew that none of that would matter, none of it would work if you didn't care deeply and track with the people. So the most important thing, the people, we were good with. We knew we had this incredible cast who I think have gone above and beyond anyone's expectations and are truly spectacular in the film.
So at the moment that you accept the invitation to do it, and it's the next day and you're home, and you thinking, oh wow, I gotta end this thing. Just personally, as a longtime fan of it, what was your personal process to get there?
Because we had worked on Force Awakens, Larry Kasdan and I and Michelle Rejwan and Kathy, producers, we had talked about quite a few things back in the day. So it was a bit of sort of picking up where we had left off. And the fact is that what Rian Johnson had done in Last Jedi, had set up some things that were sort of wonderful for this story. One of the things being that the cast was separated. The characters weren't together for the entire movie, essentially. So this was the first time that the group got to be together. Chris and I got together. We knew immediately we wanted to, tell a story of a group adventure. There were some very specific things that we were both drawn to immediately. And we just started doing the thing that you do, which is you say, what do you desperately want to see? What feels right?
Why JJ?
Why JJ?
Why this guy?
The one thing I know about Star Wars and the one thing I know about these kind of tentpole movies is this unique combination of needing dramatic storytelling, gravitas, and a great sense of humor. And I think that there's few filmmakers that really embody both of those things and also have the capability to really manage something this huge. And JJ was my first choice. So that was an easy one.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Going back to what Teresa said about how Ava's right in there, like she goes straight for why did you pick this director? Like she's like right into the questions, looking at it from that point of view. So really gave this interview kind of set the tone right away. Like the director's going to inform everything that happens on this movie. Kathleen Kennedy answers the question, and then we get to hear straight from J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved that JJ mentioned, JJ and Chris Terrio mentioned that was the first thing they talked about. They wanted a group adventure. So, we are totally in for a ride with this film.
Yeah. And speaking of Kathleen Kennedy, we don't have to pull a clip from this, but I didn't know that she was like a mic holder for like football. Monday Night Football and stuff like that. And she goes into this whole story about how she was holding the mic and running down the sideline, for the camera, like to get the sounds of the field, and basically gets tackled by a linebacker. That was probably one of the best things I have heard about Kathleen Kennedy in a really long time. Because I was like, hey, I've been tackled too.
Oh.
Awesome.
Everyone's got to start somewhere, right?
I know.
Hey, if you survive in Hollywood for as long as she has, you have to be able to take a tackle. That's a rough place,
Absolutely. Wow.
either physically or, metaphorically, you're going to get run over at some point. I was excited that she went straight to talking to some of the new cast members, getting them right out there in front of people, because we have some new characters. I'm a longtime fan of Kerry Russell, who worked with J.J. Abrams all the way back in the Felicity days, and then again in Mission Impossible.
Felicity! Yes.
So let's just hear what she said, because she's like really excited.
Kerry Russell, who the hell are you? And what are you doing here? You play Zori Bliss. Can you tell us a little bit about her? How did you approach her? And did the anonymity of being masked as an actor add something new for you to play with?
Definitely. No, JJ called me or emailed me and said, do you want to be in Star Wars? And I was like, yeah. And, but then he told me about the idea about the mask. And yeah, I love the mask. That's my fantasy dream sequence, that I can see everyone in the super tough version of myself costume and no one can see me. That's my dream. It's a real power play in a way, because no one can really see what you're thinking, but you can see everyone else. But yeah, it was amazing. And, I've known JJ for so long, and I just feel like we have a shorthand, and we speak the same language in a way. And I just feel like JJ got to finish a piece of history in a way by getting to do this. Yeah. And he did such a great job.
He really did.
So I'm not as big of a Kerry Russell fan as you guys, but I have a lot of respect for her, especially when JJ talks about the fact that Kerry was so into the mask of Zori Bliss, and she didn't take it off for like 2 days. Like, she came to set, and in between scenes, she's still wearing the mask, and he would say, "Hey, you want to take that off?" And she's like, "No, I'm good."
I just find it so funny as a person who wears a mask sometimes for a living that gets really hot and really stuffy and my hair's all messed up. I just find it hilarious that that's like her fantasy is to keep a mask on. It's like, I just want to take it off, girlfriend.
She's probably empowered by the mask. Like, look at me. You can't see me, but I can see you.
Well, I'm sure all her life she's been, she's an actress. So people look at you when you're an actress. And, I think maybe after time it gets a little wearing after a while. So you want the opposite of what you have. So it makes sense to me why she would want that.
No hair and makeup either.
Exactly.
There you go.
That, you know what?
Exactly.
That is true. Because when I have a day when I'm going to be in heads all day, it's like, yes, I don't have to worry about my face.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I have always wanted to be a head character at Disney is because I can't keep a straight face to save my life. So, I can be making all the faces I want, but they can't see me. Act with your body, not your face. Well, speaking of new cast members, she also goes and talks to Naomi Ackie and really gets into what she thought about her character and the strength that she had within that character.
How did you prepare? Did you have a defining moment where you knew how you were going to approach this?
I felt like it was really through the physicality. Mm-hmm. Like I felt like Jana's strength was in her body. Like, she's a very grounded character. So when I got to training, that's when I started to be like, okay, I
got this.
Right. Okay. Like, being able to do pull-ups and horse riding. And then I guess with that came like confidence that I hadn't previously experienced. And then working with JJ and figuring out like what the balance was between, strength of a character, but also a vulnerable side. Someone with a heart. We don't always have to just be like strong and fierce, but you can also, sometimes vulnerability is strength at the same time. So kind of finding that balance was really interesting. And I feel like we found it by the end. I mean, literally, and also like, because we watched it yesterday, I'm not being funny. Like, I left it, like, my heart was beating so hard, and it's the most visually beautiful I've ever seen. It makes you feel like a child, and there was an element of feeling like a child on set that, I mean, it's like the whole cast allowed that to happen, and JJ was the one who allowed us to be here, so, yeah, very grateful.
One of the things I love that Naomi talked about is finding the balance between a strong character and a vulnerable character. And she makes a comment about that being vulnerable is just as strong as showing that you're strong. I don't know if that makes sense, but like strength within your vulnerability.
Right.
And I was like, yes, hooray.
That speaks to me, just some of the female characters that we've loved in Star Wars, Padme being one of them. We see a lot of strength, but also a lot of vulnerability from her, and just how her story plays out in the prequel trilogy. And then thinking of Shmi also.
Oh, yeah.
Just thinking about, everybody thinks of her as strong, and what she did, she was trying to do the right thing and to let her son go away to hopefully have a better life. So same thing with that kind of dynamic of those characters. So very Star Wars to me.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, also, Ava DuVernay talked with Kelly Marie Tran, asked her a question. And one of the things about this is, like, I remember clearly when we were at Star Wars Celebration and they announced, Kelly Marie Tran came on stage and she got a standing ovation from the crowd, which was so exciting. Well, here at the press conference, she did get claps. It wasn't quite a standing ovation just because like we're all pressed in the room. We're all either recording it or taking pictures or like sharing it. So we can't be as into clapping. So I felt kind of bad that we couldn't give her that same like energy just because we were trying to take it all in. But we were there for her. And this is what Kelly Marie Tran said about The Rise of Skywalker.
Kelly Marie Tran, you're back. You're back. What was the camaraderie like on set getting the gang back together? Like I said, as you're watching it, it's just so heart expanding to see everyone in the same scenes together. What was it like actually doing it?
It was really wonderful. I think that from the last film, there seems to be such a, bond between everyone. And then also the new guys. Like everyone just feels, it sounds so cheesy and so cliche, and it is, but it truly feels like everyone's a family and we're all just there to have fun and be part of something that's so much bigger than us as individuals. And that's a really cool thing to share with people. So
it felt like these scenes denoted community, right? In the scenes within them, but they also were very closely connected to Carrie. And so I wanted you to chat a little bit about, the feeling on the set around doing that work in her absence.
Yeah. I think for myself, I can only speak for myself, there is sort of this idea that, JJ has talked about ending 9 films, and Carrie was such a big part of all of that. So I think for me personally, there was a lot of wanting to honor this thing and do right by this thing.
I feel like Kelly's now the kind of the old guard. She's had one movie under her belt. I'm glad she's back because I was a little worried that she was going to get
scared away,
lost in the shuffle. Well,
right.
That and that maybe just because of how her character was placed and how she was used in Last Jedi, she might become just, fade into the background. And we're going to hear a little more about them talking about making sure they took care of all the characters in the story, which is, there's a lot of characters. Obviously, you just read that list, but just to see her out there and to still see her participating and, being part of this. So that made me feel good.
Definitely. And I do have to add one thing. This video doesn't show it, but at the end of Kelly Marie's talk, when she's saying that she wants to honor Carrie Fisher and do right by this thing, her scenes with her in this film, she also mentions that Carrie Fisher is pretty effing incredible in this movie.
And you piggybacking off that, can I just say, I think our Star Wars cast has just completely lost all filter because John cursed I don't know how many times, and he's sitting 2 seats down from Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm just expecting this teacher look on her face to be excuse me, but I'm okay, all right, we're living in the real world, nobody cares, whatever.
I think that's sort of to their kind of family vibe. When you're more comfortable with people, I feel like they're comfortable with each other, at least the hero gang more so than anybody else. But maybe that's also honoring Carrie a little bit because she would have let the F-bombs fly.
Yes. And speaking of Carrie Fisher, okay, you guys, there was a moment towards the end of the press conference where they had opened up the floor to questions from the press, and there were some really, really good questions. One of the press asked the question about incorporating Leia into the film, and JJ begins answering this. They used the scenes that Carrie had, and when he says the word lighting, right when he says this word, several lights went dim in the room and stayed that way for the rest of the press conference. So let's play this clip and you'll hear what happens. What was the response?
Like everyone here who knew her, loved Carrie. And I knew her for a long time, not very well, but I knew her for a while before Force Awakens. And, obviously, as we've discussed, the idea of continuing the story without Leia was an impossibility. And there was no way we were going to do a digital Leia. There was no way we were, of course, ever recast it. But we couldn't do it without her. And when we went back to look at the scenes that we hadn't used in Force Awakens, what we realized is we had an opportunity. And we could use that footage, use the lines that she was saying, use literally the lighting. That was amazing. Okay, watch this. The lighting. That was creepy. Hi, Carrie.
Yeah.
Hi, Carrie. That's so Carrie, by the way, to do that.
Yep.
Really weird. In any event, we knew that we had an opportunity to use the footage to create scenes that Leia would be in. And, of course, had Carrie been around, and it's still impossible for me to believe that, she isn't, because we've been editing with her for about a year, and she's been very much alive with us in every scene. And it ended up being, if we had Carrie around, would we have done some different things here and there? Of course we would have. But we had an opportunity to have Carrie in the movie. And working with all the actors, including Billie Lourd, her daughter, who's in scenes with her, we were able to, I think, do something that Carrie herself, I'd like to think, would be happy with. She's great in the movie, of course, and it's still emotional and moving to think of her and how sad we all are that she's not sitting here with us today.
I got goosebumps. Like,
really?
Yeah, I was in the room. I got goosebumps. I started to tear up. I'm like, oh my God. As soon as JJ said that.
That was incredible.
Yeah. It was so cool. So all the rest of that press conference, and then later, I was in this round table with Chris Terrio and Michelle Rejwan, the producer, and that Carrie came up once again. And I my God, I'm so emotional when it comes to her. I started almost crying in that round table too. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm still not sure. I'm nervous about those scenes.
Yes.
Just, I don't know. It just that part. That's the one part that still gives me anxiety. I'm like, oh, but maybe she was telling us it'll be okay.
Yeah,
it was her blessing. She's like, yeah, I'm here.
It's my blessing. I'm turning the lights off.
Don't forget, I'm right here. I'm watching you.
Well, the one character that benefited, I think, mostly from not being able to use Leia in a bigger role in this movie is definitely the character of Poe. And I think Ava asked the question.
One of my favorite actors is up on this dais, and I feel like he can do anything. His name is Oscar Isaac. And Poe feels different in this to me. He's a bit, I think he was always supposed to be a bit of a swashbuckler, but he's dropped into the swashbuckling thing in this. It's all, you're dripping swashbuckling. Is it the pants?
And the knee-high boots, really. I think it's really Michael Kaplan that really brought the swashbuckling to this one,
What am I seeing that feels different in him from the previous?
Yeah, he's kind of always been a bit of a wild card energy and figuring out where he fits in the story and what story is being told. JJ and I talked a bit. I remember JJ being excited about kind of dirtying up the squeaky flyboy image that he's had for a bit and just revealing a bit more of his personality. And I think that really comes out because I've been taken away from my little box in space and, I get to join my friends this time and you really get to see the interaction with the three and the hope that I think that he in particular brings in this one. There's a kind of a relentless, almost aggressive optimism that he has, and how that is tested, and how he tries to be there for his friends, tries to push them along even when it seems quite hopeless.
You and John, John is walking charisma, charisma on legs. If you look up charisma in the dictionary, it's John with legs. The two of you have, it might be the greatest bromance in.
It's juicy.
It's hot. It's good. John, can you speak a little bit to the relationship?
When Oscar first came in, there was some other actor that I read with, and the chemistry was blatant, and there was a natural vibe between me and Oscar. I don't even know why. I just like the guy, and I just
walked into my dressing room, and it was so sweet. He's like, "You want to run the scene before?" I was like, "Yeah." And then we just got in the dressing room butt to butt and ran the scene together.
Yeah.
And then from then on, we've been in that position ever since.
So I love Oscar Isaac. I just want to say that, I love him, and congratulations to him. I think he just had another baby recently. So hopefully he's getting sleep, or not. I don't know. But I found this really awesome video where JJ, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac talk about that deep relationship between Finn and Poe and their bromance. Mm-hmm. And it is an incredible video to watch. And they kind of mention it here. John talks a little bit about it, that there's just a natural vibe between John and Oscar, which makes this natural vibe between Finn and Poe. So let's listen to John talk about that just a little bit.
It's funny because Poe wasn't supposed to star in the trilogy like this, but from the auditions, like there was a natural chemistry that me and Oscar had in real life, and that chemistry is what you see in the movie. But I just guess with the timing of the discussions, the social discussions, the sexual discussions that are going on, people assume that would be a priority in our relationship. Whereas for me, I'm way more interested in two men who actually have a loving relationship that is platonic, because it kind of also kind of defeats the stereotype of the straight relationships between two guys. How guys kind of like, we don't show a lot of, emotions between ourselves. There's sometimes this thing where I can't say to you, I love you, bro, unless, bro might be like, wait, what did you say? It's like, I think that Finn and Poe's relationship defeats that. These are two men who are cool, whatever they are. I don't know if they're straight or not. We might find out later, but whatever they are, they've always had a quite loving and open relationship in which it wouldn't be too weird if it went beyond that. But at the same time, they are just platonic at the moment.
I like the fact that they're highlighting this different kind of relationship between two men. Like you never see that in film or like anywhere. Right. Even though it does exist, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, even J.J. Abrams at the end of the video, well, he says something interesting about this relationship.
I felt, and I continue to feel, that it is my responsibility to help tell stories that represent people, and often people who aren't necessarily finding themselves on screen. We didn't write the parts of Finn or Poe or Rey with any color in mind, but when it came time to casting, it felt like it was the right thing to do, to find a cast that looked more the way the world looks than not. And in the case of the LGBTQ community, it was important to me that that people who go to see this movie feel that they're being represented in the film. I will say I'm giving away nothing about what happens in the movie, but I did just say what I just said.
Yeah, I think the video and the discussion they've had is, one, Oscar and John were open to doing this type of representation, but I also think they're setting an expectation that's not going to happen in this movie. I mean, that seems to me very clear from the way they've been talking about it, which is disappointing for a lot of fans. But the one thing that is nice to see is The Last Jedi really took two characters that I thought were healthy representations of male characters in both Poe and Finn. And The Last Jedi really showed both of them needing to be corrected and taken down for kind of degrees of toxic masculinity. And The Force Awakens did not show them that way. And it appears that what they're trying to say is they're going back to that. They're just going to skip right over that kind of representation of the characters in The Last Jedi and be like, these were healthy characters. They were representing men being vulnerable and being friends and being emotional and being vulnerable. And sometimes with characters, especially if you put a male and a female character, a lot of times you see that type of dynamic. It ends up with a romance. And so that's why people would be open to that between these two male characters. But I also think they're telling us we're not going to see that from these characters in this movie.
Right. Are you saying that in The Last Jedi, they weren't as vulnerable? Like, what do you mean when you say that they're going to take them back to The Force Awakens?
in The Last Jedi, Poe really needed to be taken down by Admiral Holdo. That was kind of the way he was represented. You know, that he was like trying to, you know, not listen to her, not listen to this woman, take command from her. There were a lot of ways he was representing kind of toxic masculinity. And a lot of people really rebuffed against that. That representation is particularly people who felt like it was a white female character lecturing to a man of color. So they just went kind of back and were like, no, Poe is Poe of The Force Awakens, where like I wrote an article for Star Wars Insider of how he was such a great representation of kind of the kind of classic quarterback type character, except he's, you know, giving people, taking them into his fold as opposed to being like, you know, macho quarterback character. You know, he's bringing Finn in. He's like, I know you may not have the best intentions for breaking out, but I'm gonna see the best in you. And so that character, and then again with Rose's character in The Last Jedi, a lot of people felt like Finn was being put in his place as well in that movie. So a lot of this kind of the narrative that they've been trying to do is to kind of undo that. Literally undo The Last Jedi's representation of which kind of wanted to set Finn and Poe down and kind of like make them representations of masculinity that needed to be corrected, as opposed to assuming that they were representing really good ways to be men in relationships, whether it's a friend or anything else.
Oh. Well, and when you mentioned that, Trisha, it took me immediately to a character in a movie that I think does that. You know, the quarterback that you're saying that's like very like open and welcoming and trying to make things, you know, a family and not really caring. If you've seen Remember the Titans, Sunshine is an amazing example of that.
Also, I think Kristoff in Frozen 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, when he's like, I've got you, what do you need?
Oh my God. Dude, can I just say
the movie.
Can I just say that right there just reminded me of Richard. Like that's how Richard is to me. And yeah,
and that reminded me of Greg. Like it's the same. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like how you know. It's how you know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, Kristoff in that movie was just Kristoff.
Yeah.
Kristoff.
Let's go back to the 80s with Kristoff.
Oh my gosh. I have such a conflicting, like, I love Kristoff and Flynn so much. Like, I wish they were just one character, like, you know. Anyway.
They could be two.
I know, but then I kind of go into this thing of, like, where I feel like I'm going to end up fighting with Sarah, because like you guys do, or we all do with Oscar, but like she's gonna want Flynn but also want Kristoff, and I'm like, dude, you can't have both. Like you have to pick one. You know, it's gonna be this battle of who gets Kristoff and who gets Flynn.
but who of us wants Adam Driver?
None
of us. I don't know. I just like Oscar Isaac and John Boyega are very attractive to me, but like Adam Driver just is not. Like I feel bad about it, but hot take, not cute.
We'll let Adam speak for himself.
So am I technically in the proper Star Wars lore if I don't just call him Kylo Ren? He's also Ben Solo, right? Like if I say Ben Solo, is that also accurate?
Yes and no.
Okay, well, let me ask you. My question is, in your performance of Kylo Ren, did you allow Ben Solo and who he was before to influence the way that you played Kylo?
When people are actively trying to deny a certain part of their lives, I think they can do it pretty successfully. And then it just turns into what is happening around them that brings it out in them. So I think maybe, but it's not. I don't think it's something that we actively talked about playing it, but it definitely is the thought to have.
And since you,
again, I think that's a testament to the writing that from the beginning, it being called Force Awakens was intentional in that it was the Force Awakening for both sides, the light and the dark. And JJ, even in those first meetings, talking about someone who is unformed and not a quintessential in control, of his faculties, knows where he fits in which again is helpful for me as an actor because we are figuring out the same thing. It totally echoes what's going on in the story, especially in the first one, new cast, figuring out where you fit, in a legacy that spans, so much time. The end.
What you don't get in this clip is kind of the whole awkward way that Adam just doesn't want to really talk about it at all, where he's like trying to hand the mic back to J.J. Abrams. Like, that was funny. You answer the question. And J.J.'s like, no, you answer the question. And you can tell. I mean, Adam Driver I've known this type of guy. He's ex-Marine, then went to Juilliard. He's like really into his acting. He's a really good actor. He's really, really good. And when he talks about his character, he's always talking about it from his character's point of view. Like, you can see a lot of actors can separate and they can talk about the story. But Adam's, when he's answering, he's seeing the story from Kylo Ren's perspective. And so he has a hard time, like, when people are like, well, why did he say that? And they're like, because that's how he sees the character, not how the story is, right? There's two different ways, right? So I can appreciate his kind of furtive, earnestness.
Right.
Even
he was asked a question about Baby Yoda in another interview I saw, and they asked him what would he do as Kylo Ren with Baby Yoda. And he said, well, he'd probably be really neglectful caretaker and put him in front of the TV with snacks and leave.
Wow.
Watch the Clone Wars, kids.
I'm like, is that what they did to Ben Solo? Because
I think so. That's why he's so messed up. Wow. Well, we did get a question. Ava did ask a question of Daisy, and I thought it was a really good question. What was harder, the physicality or the emotional toll, shooting this film? And here is what Daisy Ridley said.
With the physical stuff, you train and train and train, and then the adrenaline helps you, like, on the day to, like, do the thing. But obviously the stamina needs to be there for you to continue to do the thing. But I would say I was more tired emotionally because there really wasn't a day where I was like, no, it's just a quick scene. Coming from the last one, which was quite heavy, even the joyous scenes I found very strange to do. And then obviously there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. And it's also tricky because understanding what JJ was asking of me, I'd be like, I know what you're asking, I just can't quite get there yet. So that was probably the most tricky thing, and sustaining that emotion. And there's more of a, I would say, like a singular intention that was tiring. Because as well, even in the emotional scenes, there's like a physical containment that is tiring. So really, I've not answered the question, and both things were hard.
I thought she was so cute, you guys. Both things were hard.
Oh, gosh. Well, then she says, I haven't really answered the question. So.
That's, we've all been there, right? When someone asks you a question and then you're like, did I answer the question? Or did I just like dance around the 8 things I wanted to say? Well, we know, like, if you ask Dave Filoni a question, he doesn't answer the question you asked. He gives you some other answer that he wanted to talk about. So I felt like that's very Star Wars.
It's the Zootopia method of doing it.
Exactly.
Well, and the other thing with Daisy is she's very dry and kind of straight to the point, if she can be. She doesn't emote a whole lot. Unless she's around certain people. But I've noticed this in a lot of interviews. They ask her a question, and if she can answer it, she answers it, and she just ends. Like, that's it.
That's very British. My dad's from London, so yeah, it's their way.
Okay. By the way, at the press conference itself, there's the whole like big room where they have costumes set up. They have all these setups of different things in this one giant room. And at one point, I was eating, and Richard and I were eating, and Daisy Ridley walked in with her entourage and was checking out like the t-shirt making station and the Funko Pop station and all this stuff. And since you're press, like you can't really behave like a fan and go up to her and ask for a picture or something, because the people, you know, they won't really let you do that, and it's not very professional. So we didn't get a picture with her, but we did see her walking around and talking with all the people running those booths. So that was pretty cool.
I also like Daisy's answer to the question of what do you want your legacy to be?
I think in itself to be part of something, like a lot of people in cinema are talking about representation and change and aren't doing it. So I think in itself being part of a team of people that look a little different, that are from different places, like in whatever form that is, gender, race, whatever it is, I think that in itself is a legacy to be proud of. Yeah, I think, and you know, like JJ was saying, this is a film of hope. And I think we are reflective of the world at large. There are a lot of people up against magnificent forces that are fighting the good fight, and, you know, and the characters aren't real, but what they're doing is perilous in cinema. So to be able to portray, you know, even a tiny part of that in this crazy world is very special.
Here's the funny thing about that question is I was like, oh man, what do I want my legacy to be? I was thinking about myself, and I was like, that I did good things. How do you even answer that? Like, that's one of those questions you give to someone in advance so they can prepare.
Yeah.
You know?
Or someone who's older. Maybe.
Yeah, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe if you're like Harrison Ford, you've got a good, you know, zinger coming. I just want to dress up kid as a hot dog and take my kid out for Halloween. That's my legacy.
That was a very good Harrison Ford, Trisha.
It wasn't grumpy enough.
I know it wasn't. I'm making fun of you. I'm sorry.
I feel like now if you do Harrison Ford, you have to sound like an old grumpy dog, because the last thing I saw him in was Secret Life of Pets 2.
Oh gosh.
Wow. That's awesome.
I feel like this might be a good jumping off point to go into the round table.
Yes, before we do that, I just want to note one last thing that JJ says about The Rise of Skywalker, and I feel like we can really look forward to this film because of what he says right here.
We live in a crazy time. And Star Wars for me was about hope. And it was about community. It was about the underdog. And it was about bringing people together and seeing all oddballs represented, and the most unlikely friends and the most unlikely places, and the family that you make is really your family, you know? And so to tell a story that is, of course, a giant spectacle and a sort of, you know, like you say, the blockbuster wrapping. But the thing that mattered to me most, more than all the spectacular, unbelievable, I would argue, best work ILM has ever done, all the departments going beyond expectations, the thing that matters, I would say, most and only in the film is really the people who are sitting here, you know, and what you're watching, and the eyes of the characters and the heart of the characters. So for me, it really is about hope, and it's about coming back to a sense of possibility, about unity, and it's, if Star Wars can't do that for us, I don't know what can.
So I don't know about you guys, but like, yeah, that made me tear up too.
And then you teared up and had to go to a round table with Chris Terrio, the writer.
Oh, poor you.
Michelle Rejwan, the producer.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I did. Okay. So here we go. Let's jump into this. Now, this was supposed to be directly after the press conference. However, we got out of the press conference and we're like looking for things, and they had mentioned, okay, all broadcast media, come with me. Everyone else, you know, Spies in Disguise. There's a round table for that, which is a Fox film coming out on December 25th. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, you know, I didn't prepare for that one because that was supposed to be at the same time as the Chris Terrio roundtable. So they were trying to usher me into the Spies in Disguise thing. And I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Wait. I have a question.
Yes.
for the Spies in Disguise roundtable, was Will Smith at that roundtable? Because if he was, why didn't you go?
No, he was not. So it was a voice actor that I didn't know their name. I think it was one of the kids, and it was like 2 directors or writers of the film.
Oh, so never mind. If Will Smith had been there, though, I would have been like, dude, detour.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then I would have been like, where are you going?
They were at the world premiere of the movie later that night, which I happened to be at. Woo. But no, they were not at that round table. So I went instead into the main room and got pictures with BB-8 and Little Dio and Chewbacca, and, looked around at all the booths and everything too. But so Chris Terrio was put off almost an hour. So we were waiting, and then finally we got the call, and there was about 10 of us, I would say, 8 to 10. And, we went to the room that we were supposed to be at, and we were sat in the room for 20, 25, 30 more minutes while we waited for Chris Terrio to show up. And it wasn't their fault at all. Like during this is happening, there's broadcast things going on. There's all sorts of other roundtables and things. And about 10 minutes before the roundtable was supposed to happen, we were told that producer Michelle Rejwan would also be joining Chris Terrio. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And I messaged our Fangirls Going Rogue chat, and I'm like, okay, Michelle Rejwan's going to be here. And Trisha, you were on it, girlfriend. You were giving me her whole backstory and some questions. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, I do know a little bit of stuff, but people who don't know, she's from Bad Robot. That's how she came into Star Wars, was via Bad Robot. And now she's the name that Kathleen Kennedy has talked about as, being part of this, new future of Star Wars. So she worked on the Star Trek movies. She has, had a history with J.J. Abrams. So it was interesting that she came in and spoke to this. I think the interesting answer, just leading off of what J.J. said in the press conference, is how she and Chris Terrio talk about serving so many characters with this movie.
We really worked very hard to make sure that every character had an arc, it's a lot to juggle, which I'll let Chris speak to more, but it was very important to us because we're so invested and care deeply about these characters that we've spent, in some cases, 2 movies with, in some cases, more obviously, and then the new characters that we wanted to be relatable and grounded in their own right, and rooting for them and caring about them.
And also just entrances. I think Michelle and I both feel like the first 10 seconds or 30 seconds you spend with a character is the moment when you bond with the character. Think about the moment you meet Lando, where he walks up to Han and you just, and then the minute that you realize that he actually is going to hug him, you fall in love with Lando. And so we were really careful about the entrances of our new characters and just trying to make you bond with them right away.
Yeah, how cool is this that, I'm going to be really looking for the entrances of these characters because of what Chris said in this roundtable, right?
It's very, if you think about how we were introduced to a lot of the characters, just the way you're introduced to Princess Leia or Han Solo, he shot first, and Luke Skywalker's a little bit of a slower introduction, but a lot of the, Lando, just the way they come in. Yeah, it's very important to the story because especially it's this in media res type of way of telling a story, is that things are happening. You're just going to have to catch up.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the cool things throughout the press conference and this roundtable is what I really learned overall is that the storytelling of this film was not only written by Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams, but Michelle Rejwan and Kathleen Kennedy had a lot to do with the storytelling as well. As far as I can tell, and as far as what I got from the press conference. So I think that's good, and I'm glad that they were able to lend their perspective so early on. Now, Trisha, you gave me an interesting question for Chris before the press conference, before this roundtable, and you had mentioned that he was part of Hasty Pudding at Harvard, which is, what exactly is that again?
Hasty Pudding is the oldest theatrical company in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I actually had to give credit to BJ, who's my editor at Fangirl Blog, because he's a Harvard alumni and he had read up on Chris Terrio and knew that was definitely something we should ask about. So let's let you ask the question and we'll talk about it.
I had a question for Chris, actually. I know something in Star Wars is very important is the humor. And so I just wondered if maybe your experience with hasty pudding at Harvard.
Oh God, did you look that up? I hope there are no pictures.
Read some quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, did that help at all with the humor?
Well, you know, the really, it's like so much of humor is rhythm, I think, and so that's something that I learned even before I had any dreams of doing Star Wars from Larry Kasdan's writing. Like Larry Kasdan is so like in the Han Leia scenes and even into Jedi, like the sense of the comic, the wit and rhythm. In fact, when I was doing Argo, I thought so much about that scene in the tunnels with Han and Leia, you know, because there are a lot of scenes in hallways of moving people having a rhythmic conversation in Argo, and so I've looked up to Larry, you know, my whole writing life, and so I was very conscious of the rhythm of the way people talk. And then when you get Oscar in a room, you know, and John and obviously Daisy and Anthony together in a group, and then you add in elements like, you know, Naomi and Kelly and Jonas and Kelly, it's like they're this. You can't fake it. They just have this natural, like, I mean, I hope you feel this when you see the movie. They have this, like, natural alchemy that it was like when we were doing Argo, Ben and Bryan Cranston just had this thing. They just had this, like, music that they had together. And then when you added Alan Arkin to that, it was like, oh, the three of them have this music. And I haven't really heard that music from actors again in something I've worked on until this. And with this, you just felt when they were talking, like they just fed off each other's energy.
Yeah, he got a big kick out of that.
He's like, you've read up on me.
Thanks, BJ.
There are a lot of famous people who've come out of Hasty Pudding that are working in Hollywood. Just like if you look at the names, if you go look it up, I'm not going to read them all, but if you just go look at the list, you'll be like, okay, wow. This is a really impressive group that's affected storytelling in the United States.
Wow. Well, one of the things I loved right off the bat, you know, Chris mentions that he is a huge Lawrence Kasdan fan and that a lot of the scenes he wrote in Argo was, you know, he was really thinking about the Han and Leia scenes in the hallways in Empire Strikes Back. Like, how cool is that? And those scenes for me are like some of the best. I mean, they drew me into Star Wars, those scenes. So I'm excited that we have, you know, someone who's kind of using this legacy and using it to move forward in the Skywalker saga. And the fact that the cast here, you know, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, you know, they all have this chemistry that he's able to use for this rhythm. So, wow, I just have this. If anything, this maybe has super high expectations for this film, which may not be a good thing.
If you don't if you haven't learned about how much Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford actually affected a lot of the storytelling, I mean, it was up to them to really, you know, you can write the best stuff, but if they can't deliver it, if they can't act it and do the beats, it doesn't work. And there's, you know, there's that clip of Harrison Ford laying in the fire pit when the Ewoks are going to roast him. And he and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are practicing the lines and how they're going to deliver it. And Harrison's like, no, if we don't do it this way, it won't be funny. So it's really important. You know, it was important to The Force Awakens. John Boyega and Daisy Ridley actually changed the way they wrote those characters because of how good of friendships they were. So it's this crazy dynamic of how the writer has to do his or her job, but then how the actors, if they don't deliver on it, and it's like this kind of cycle. It makes it work, you know. And I remember thinking too, back in the day, from footage of Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, how much their chemistry worked. And then, you know, they made that romance work because they were good friends off the set. They worked, you know, together. So same thing, going back to the prequel trilogy.
All right, well, now it brings back around to Carrie Fisher again, and we had another question about Carrie Fisher, so let's hear what Michelle and Chris say about incorporating her into the script.
Because, you have these nuggets and scenes, and some of them are just good lines that you just dream of hearing Leia say. But and every time you look at a line, you know that these are among the last words that Carrie will ever say on screen. So you want them to have meaning, and yet you don't want to lose the sense of Carrie's wit and her funniness and her fun. So you don't want every line to be some grand, pronouncement. You want to also keep a little bit of the improvisation and messiness that Carrie would deliberately bring to a role. That twinkle in Leia's eye is that free energy that Carrie had. So I think there are scenes where you feel that, but you also feel the gravity that she, we're learning much more about Leia. Even we learn more in episode 8. We'll learn even more here about where she's been and where she is. But it is a challenge to try to keep the intentions of what Carrie's choices in the scene were, because we didn't want to be engineering her into scenes where you don't feel that Carrie has made certain acting choices that then are betrayed by completely changing the context. So the scenes were written to be very much in the context of what the Force Awakens scenes were, and yet the circumstances and around them obviously needfully changed for this.
Okay. How heartbreaking is that? Every time you look at a line, you know that these are among the last lines that Carrie will ever say on screen. Again, I got those chills again. In that room, it's like, oh, the lights did not go down though at that point.
She's not back to haunt Terrio.
No,
it's just a JJ thing.
It's like, it's all on you. Did you guys see the thing where she wrote in the book the dedication to JJ, and she said it was great working with you both times?
Yes.
Carrie Fisher wrote that in the book.
Yeah, and she had only worked with him once. So,
wow.
Yeah, and the biggest thing about that is at that time, he wasn't even supposed to be attached to this movie.
Yeah.
So there probably wouldn't have been a time that they would have worked together again. So, ooh.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I like to listen to Terrio talk about storytelling just in general. Like, he has a really good understanding of the kind of this place and time of the storytelling. So maybe we'll let him speak to that.
We want everyone's arc to feel complete in this film. I mean, there are plenty of existing characters and characters in this that, of course, I would totally sit and watch a series about. But we didn't really have those conversations because we felt like everyone has to get to the place where they need to be at the end of this movie. And of course, whether the ending of a story just depends on where you stop telling it, right? Which was a big meta idea for us, that whether it's a happy ending depends on where you stop telling it. If I say I got hit by a car, then that's a very unhappy ending. But if I got hit by a car and went to the hospital and met my wife there, then maybe the story has a different ending. So that was a thing that we talked about a lot in the new film, because the original trilogy ends, it has a happy ending, but then as soon as we go into The Force Awakens and you realize that the galaxy is still a bit messed up and the First Order has arisen, that the story hasn't quite ended yet. And so we wanted to give a somewhat definitive ending for episode 9, even though, sure, if we kept on telling it, I'm sure it would go in different directions.
Okay, so throughout the roundtable, Michelle was a surprise to be there, and one of the questions I had in my head is, what did she, as a producer, bring to Star Wars in particular? Because, I really want to know that. So let's hear her answer.
It's a great question. I mean, I really am so inspired by Star Wars, and, it's endless possibility, and it's the conversation around good and evil in the galaxy, within ourselves, that constant tension of the Force, is what inspires me always with this, and working with writers like Chris and JJ, and, it building that story through that vision is really, that is what I love so much about it, because Star Wars is this unbelievable blend of the intimate and the epic, always, and I feel it has to be very personal to the storytellers, and I want to give it everything.
And it's not a job, you know. It's a like you don't text each other and call each other at 2:45 in the morning with an idea because it's a job. You do it because you love it so much.
Yeah,
and
desperately.
we've been, you know, we since the beginning, like Michelle and JJ and Kathy and I have been, you know, like obsessives. Like on the plane, I was telling Michelle on the plane on the way here from New York, I had this feeling, and I didn't recognize it, and it was boredom. It's like I literally haven't been bored in 2.5 years because every waking moment we were like obsessed with Star Wars, obsessed with how can we make this better. Oh my God, is it okay when he says this? Is it okay when she says that? Could we?
Right. Should we? What about this word? Is this word better? You know, like down to those details all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really cool that for 2.5 years he hasn't been bored, and that because I get bored a lot in life, and I don't know what that feels like to not be bored. So, but it's just crazy that he realized it. Like he was doing something he loved so much for 2.5 years, and like now it's almost over. Once the movie comes out, it's really going to be over for everybody. You know, like right now they're all on the press circuit high, and they get to do this and do that and go to the premiere and blah blah blah. And then after December 20th, they all need jobs.
Yep.
The film business.
I think at some point during the press conference, Oscar makes a comment about that to Ava DuVernay. He's like, well, I'm looking for work, so.
Good time to do that.
Yeah, high demand. You know, and it's something that I realized the other day, but I realized it because my mom mentioned it, that we have had 3 Latino leads in Star Wars in the new era, which is so freaking cool.
Yep, you have Pedro Pascal.
Yep,
Oscar
and
Isaac
Oscar,
and Diego Luna.
Yep.
All awesome.
So, Trisha, you got to ride Rise of the Resistance, and I broke down and I watched a ride through. So I've watched her. Sarah, you get to go in like a month. I don't get to go for like another 4 or 5 months.
I know.
Down.
Okay.
I had, you know, there's a big difference. Like if I was you and I was living right next to Disneyland, I wouldn't have watched it. But since I don't get to go for a while, so I did watch a ride through, and I just kept thinking to myself, watching this is nothing like being on it. I guarantee it. Like, it's cool. I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I know when it's happening to me, totally different experience. So tell us a little bit about it. Or all about it, or everything.
All about it, or the whole event. Everything.
Okay. Don't spoil anything, though. Don't spoil anything for those of us who haven't watched the ride videos.
I won't spoil anything.
Push mute there.
I know.
This is the longest, most ambitious attraction Star Wars has ever done. And Disney. Anybody's done. Anybody in the world. It's definitely an adventure. I have to say, I had this really weird experience. On top of having this sinus infection, I was having this really big sympathetic response to everybody working on the attraction. And press media day was, people were getting stuck. They were telling us not to go on at certain times, and now go try. Never got to go through it without getting each part doing something wrong.
Oh no.
You know, doing the whole thing. Yeah. And so being like an engineer and having opened like major projects where, you know, like at some point you just have to open it, right? You just have to get online and start to do it. I understand that, like it has to happen. But at the same time, these people have to stay in character. Like, so you're not mechanic walking down the hall to fix Star Tours, right? You know, if it breaks down, you're like have to be first order dude walking down the hall.
Oh God.
To fix that.
That's hard.
So this whole time I'm like, I understand that you just have to go and open the ride. And at the same time, I'm like feeling like, oh, these engineers and the electricians and this person, and like, I'm having this whole crazy weird response. So I don't even know if I could say that I have, and to be fair, I didn't get ever a full ride through on it where something didn't happen. So I want to warn people, there is a part where you go into a hold room and there's no cast member, there's nobody. It's a very confined space. If you are if you have issues with that, which I do, that can be very intimidating. I feel like my experience with this attraction was not
ideal.
How would I say ideal, or how
it's not how most people are going to experience it.
Right. So I feel like there's like some amazing things in it, but at the same time, I just never got the quote immersive grand experience of things happening. So I've struggled with that for the last week, to be honest. It's like,
well, it's kind of the same thing as seeing. Well, okay, so let me go back. This actually highlights something that we experience as being pressed quite a bit from the different things that we get to do. We have to do things like all kinds of backwards and out of sync and stuff, to where it's not the same experience, because like when we go to press screenings of movies, that is so weird. And it is so like, it is not anything like how you guys probably that are listening would expect it to be. Like, oh, press screening, cool, you get to see it first. I'm seeing it first with a lot of people that are sitting there writing stuff down and not even enjoying it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, so it makes sense to me that you would be experiencing this on a press day, a media day, where they know that, pretty much everybody goes in, this isn't going to be perfect. We're just getting a general idea, blah, blah, blah. And it just highlights it so well. Being pressed sometimes is not the best way to experience something.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this like, I was like, well, what am I going to say? I really loved it because I thought it was really cool, and there were parts that are amazing, like walking out into you've seen the shot of all the First Order troopers in the bay, and like that is like real size, like real scope, everything. But that's just like the ride, without giving things away, is it moves you into a transport. So what I would encourage people, when you get on that, when you get to do it, look around, because it's meant for you to look around. Like, you're not just like standing there looking forward. Look in the back, look at the monitors. There's different things happening. So I got to go through several times. So I did get to like see those things. And then, you transition to when you're on the starship. So you're transitioning, essentially, it's kind of like a ride to an experience to a ride type of thing is sort of how it goes. So that last part where you see video of people on the ride, that's kind of like the last few minutes of it. That's really fun and reminds me personally of Ratatouille in Disneyland Paris, for people who've ridden that, which will be coming to Epcot soon anyway. And then people go like, oh, I see why you say that.
Well, I think it makes sense because I think it's a similar ride vehicle at that point. It's a very similar to the Bratz that you're in.
Yep.
It's a trackless like Brat ride. Which kind of funny that you bring that up, because you're at the feet of like all these walkers and stuff, sort of like in the Ratatouille ride, where you're like a mouse or a rat. I prefer to say mouse.
And that's exactly its perspective. And then like, it's weird too, because if you don't know to look around, like in that kind of the walker bay, Finn is in there.
Oh,
and so but if you don't know to look around, so that's why I say, when you're in there, look around, because you'll find him, but the ride doesn't necessarily direct you to see him. Like I would say, like in Indiana Jones, how everything's directing you to see something in that ride, and
or even Star Tours, where you're just looking at the screen.
Exactly. This one, there's like so much going on, so you have to go through. And I don't know that we need to talk at great length. You can definitely look up about getting on the attraction now, but at this point, it's, you need to get there before the park opens to get in the virtual queue, and they've lessened the number of people on the virtual queue. I heard a lot of people said it, the system is a little funky in the morning and gets better in the afternoon, and pretty much watching since then, that seems to be how the park insiders are reporting it. So I heard that before I even got on the ride, that it was a little funky in the morning, and it seems to be that that's how it's operating still at this point. And who knows, with being an engineer, you're like, is that the weather? There's a lot of things, like I look at it too, like that. I'm like very analytical looking at it. Like, you have a ride that you want to be online and working, but then you cycle it off. And this is be like a power plant. When you cycle it off, it goes, things settle, and then you have to get them all started back up. And sometimes not everything wants to flow at once, and you have to slowly get to the point where everything's like, yay, we're happy and working again.
Well, maybe it's because they have somebody right next to them screaming periodically.
What?
Could be.
What do you mean, like people on the ride screaming?
I scream next to Trisha at Disney World all the time. So
I got you. Wow.
But one of the things that for me was the highlight of my day, which I will share with you, is that I did get to speak to 2 Imagineers about working on this ride. So for me, that was like, of all the things that happened that day, I'm talking to 2 women who are talking about getting to work with Disney as Imagineers and apply these things like STEM that fascinate me to the process of creating adventures like this.
Hi, I'm here with Karen and Chelsea, Imagineering representatives who worked on Rise of Resistance. So they're going to talk about some of my favorite things that we talk about on Fangirls Going Rogue. So first, Chelsea, why don't you let us know what you did on Rise of Resistance?
Sure. So I'm the production designer. So I'm responsible for the implementation of the creative intent. So through design, fabrication, and installation, I'm making sure we're all focusing the same direction and that we're meeting that story.
And Karen?
So I am a senior show mechanical engineer. So I oversaw the design and production of a lot of the audio animatronics characters that you meet throughout the attraction.
And I understand you're also an engineer.
I am.
So tell us what kind of engineering you did and how you got to be working on this.
Sure. So I studied mechanical engineering in school and did a fair share of internships leading up to it, and really kind of just fell into this amazing role that we've gotten to work with so many great other people, learn from some of the best engineers in the company, and then working with these amazing creative partners to bring Rise of the Resistance to life.
And Chelsea, you get to work on story. Mm-hmm. So what brought you to this place? How did you end up here, and maybe why Star Wars?
Oh, I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life. I dressed up as Queen Amidala for Halloween when I was like 6 years old. So this is a dream project. I couldn't have asked for a better project and a better team. It worked out where when we were going to build one in Florida, they brought some Florida people over, and I got put on the team, and I am so grateful because it has been a wild ride.
Do either of you ladies have a challenge that you experienced getting here, as far as getting this ride done, that you want to share and how you overcame it?
I think, this is one of the most advanced attractions that we've ever done. So we faced a lot of challenges. From our standpoint, we were trying to push the audio animatronics to a whole new level of performance. For example, we wanted you to think that you are there in the room with Kylo Ren. So using our technology and working again with such great creative partners to make sure that we're really capturing that essence of Kylo Ren was probably one of the larger challenges that we faced just across the board, making sure that we're representing these characters and doing them justice.
How about you?
Many challenges along the way, but the biggest one is there's such an expectation, right? Like, people have such a thought of what Star Wars is, and we are taking you on an opportunity to be in the story. You are living your Star Wars story, and people have waited for this their whole life, and now we have this expectation that we have to meet. And it all comes back to the story, right? We're trying to give you that experience, that moment of, I just got captured, and how does that feel? What does that look like? What is the scale? So to make sure we nailed that and got that right was the most important part, to make sure that when you're there, you feel that it is authentically Star Wars.
And how do you guys feel now that the moment is at hand and I'm going to get to go live my adventure?
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see your reaction. This has been a dream come true. We've worked so hard. So many people have had to come together, and we've had all these different people firing on all cylinders for years. So I think this is the moment that we've all been waiting for, that we can share this. We've had this extreme passion, and now it's time for you guys to be able to live your journey.
All right. Congratulations on your hard work and achievement, and I look forward to experiencing it.
So in addition to being there for the Rise of Resistance ride, which I don't know, did you guys see that there were the X-Wing drones too?
Yes.
I heard about them, and I heard that you couldn't really see them.
No, we couldn't.
You could see them in the dedication ceremony on the Disney Parks blog.
Yeah, because they were up really high. Their camera was up really high, and we were down really low. So that was kind of things like you could hear it, and you could see kind of a little blue glow, but over the trees for a second, and that was it. So that part was kind of like. But I've seen that they've still been doing that. They did like a little stage show. I think it was 7:30 and 8:30. So we're kind of they assemble the X-Wing pilots and stuff like that.
So even after the opening, they do this stage show?
They still have so far. So I don't know how long they're going to do it. And I would assume that they'll probably do it at Disneyland too. I don't know. Maybe not, because those X-Wings are parked kind of over in the parking lot area. So who knows? But over kind of where the Star Cruiser is going to be. We did get a little sneak peek at that.
Oh, so the Star Wars hotel, basically.
The Star Wars hotel. No, it's not a hotel. It's a Star Cruiser.
I know, but for the masses.
The masses.
I forget that it's called the Star Cruiser, so if you call it Star Wars Hotel, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, we have to start drilling it into your brain, because we can't call it Star Wars Land anymore. It's Galaxy's Edge. So see how you just say it over and over again until you just sort of assimilate.
Right, but right now we're in the associating phase. So the Star Wars Hotel, Star Wars Cruiser. There you go.
Star Cruiser. Okay.
Star Cruiser. Which I'm like, that to me was like, I'm like more excited because adults are going to get to do Jedi training.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think it's just going to be like simulated, like blaster shots type thing, but I'll take it. Give me Kylo Ren. I'll have at him.
So do they give you any more info on that?
Well, they assembled us and dinner, and they talked about it, but not really anything more that hasn't been out there if you're really following it. So I felt like, 2021, that kind of stuff. So it didn't feel like there was anything new there if you're really following it. But there were 450 members of the press at this event.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so they were not messing around.
but you got to see some stuff about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And I'm excited about that.
I'm excited about that too. I got a poster too. For the railway. And that's coming really soon. And they actually took us into the kind of the opening show of it into the theater. So it's really cool because it's the same type of idea where they're changing Hollywood studios, where you're not just kind of sitting there and watching them make movies. Now they want you to kind of be part of the movie. So in this case, you're going to be part of a Mickey and Minnie animated film.
Ooh.
And yeah, so the intro sets that up, and you guys know that what's this short called? What is it? Save the Horse one that they do at the Pixar.
Ride a Horse.
Ride a Horse.
Yeah.
I would say the opening kind of reminds me of kind of the spirit of that animated short.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. And then they gave us a whole day of showing us everything that's coming to Epcot, because Epcot feels like the park that we go to for food.
Drink.
It's, it was the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, which is now the community of yesterday sometimes.
Oh, totally.
When we go through it.
So much.
But they really focused on the Walt Disney statement of Epcot will always be in a state of becoming. And that was kind of their mantra of kind of showing the things of what's happening. But I didn't know, Teresa, were there any of the things that you saw that you were excited for?
Yes. Okay, well, first, if you want to know more about Epcot, watch, I think it's episode 2 of the Imagineering story on Disney Plus.
Yes, it is.
I think it's episode 2. They really go into it. So I have more respect for Epcot after watching that. But I'm going to have even more respect for Epcot when all the new stuff comes. The Journey of Water. That's going to tie into Moana. Guys. Oh, Moana. Okay. Like, it already drives me nuts that Moana's not a constant meet and greet in the parks. I don't understand it. She should be meeting at the Polynesian. I'm just saying, throwing it out there. Put her in the character meal, Disney, if you're listening. But Journey of Water, I'm so excited about this. I know it's just going to be a walkthrough attraction, but shade and water at Epcot, both are too necessary.
Yes. Yes.
So very excited. Also, there's going to be a play pavilion that is like, I think it's where Interventions is right now, I think, but it's going to include Joy and Sadness and Baymax. It's like where they are right now. It's going to can't wait. And then also there's the new films that are coming to the Land Pavilion, and one of them is Awesome Planet, and they've been advertising it, and I'm like, Awesome Planet. I want to see it so bad. As long as there's no like animals eating other animals.
Oh, well, that does happen in the wild.
I know,
Awesome
but
Planet.
I don't need to see a snow leopard or eating, not a snow leopard.
Don't talk to me about snow leopards.
Sorry, not a snow leopard. It's a leopard seal eating a penguin or chasing one. I don't like, that's, anytime there's any kind of nature documentary that has to do with oceans, I'm like, oh God, the seal leopard part.
I know, but Born in China just scarred me. I'm just saying. It was a damn good film, but man, I can't watch it again.
It's a really good film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are talking about being scarred, and I'm thinking, I can't wait to ride the Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
That's going to be awesome too.
I agree. I think it's hilarious how like now Epcot's going to have all these IPs in it.
Yeah. Well, and the funny part is they've like managed this way. They're working it into kind of the way the land is. Mm-hmm. So that's part of Discovery section. And it's just like the people of, what is it, Xandar? Is that the place where they go? Like have come and they're sharing their knowledge with the people of Earth. So
I have one requirement for this ride though. There needs to be a galaxy cosmic wall for Walls of Disney Pictures. So, I mean, if it doesn't have that.
Okay.
It is really weird to walk through Epcot and all those front pillars that used to be at the entrance are gone. Yeah, it's really weird. It's like, okay, we'll be happier. One thing that I think, obviously we've talked about Cherry Tree Lane.
Did they say any more about this?
Just that it's coming and it'll be really impressive. But the way I think it'll be really impressive is we did get to see the Beauty and the Beast sing-along preview, which will be, I know, in France. And when I took the Skyliner over France, they've come a long way. They're really expanding that. So if they do as big of an expansion for Cherry Tree Lane, it could be amazing.
I know, with the Skyliner where it goes over, you can see like them building out Ratatouille and all. Oh, yeah, so cool.
I'm gonna cry, you guys, if I get to walk through Cherry Tree Lane.
Well, you are. I mean, they just showed the pictures, but if you look at how big they made the France part, if they make it like half as big for Cherry Tree Lane, it would be so cool. I don't know, like, I'm sure it feels like they're not just going to make that. There's going to be more to it. We just haven't heard all that yet.
Right.
What if they sell kites there?
Well, they'd sell a lot of them. Everyone's going to want to fly a kite.
Or what if it's one of those kites that's like on like a wire, so when you hold it, it's already up in the air, and you can run around with it. Whee!
That would be awesome.
So I feel like maybe we should transition into our character discussion. What do you guys think?
I think that works.
Sidious, Anakin, Luke and Leia, Qui-Gon Jinn, C.O. Bibble, Kylo Ren, Salacious Crumb, Bib Fortuna, Boba Fett, Amidala, Wicket, R2-D2, BB-8, I can barely keep it straight. It's a character discussion.
All right. So for our character discussion, we are going to talk about Cara Dune. And it is Cara. It is not Cara. And the reason I know this is because it was in some interview. I think you guys have probably figured out by now that I tend to go down YouTube rabbit holes of interviews on late night talk shows and things and whatever with anything I'm interested in. Usually it's Tom Hanks, but in this case, it was Star Wars characters and Star Wars actors and things like that. And so because her name is Gina Carano, they wanted to pay homage to the character that she's playing. So Cara comes from her last name. So that's how they kind of made the character name, actually. I learned that. Yeah. So it is Cara Dune. And we're going to talk about this character. She was in the fourth episode of The Mandalorian. Fourth episode of The Mandalorian, when she finally made her first appearance. And I wanted to talk about her, what you guys think about her, what you think about how she performed in that episode, just all of those things. And also, I'm naming my new kitty Cara. So just, my first cat with a Star Wars name, you guys.
I know you were really brave. I think you decided on that name before you even saw the character.
I did. I was really nervous about it too. And I'm like, please be good. Please be good. Please be good. And then after the episode, I was like, sold.
Yeah, how cute was that episode? The Mandalorian had to find a way to maybe keep Baby Yoda out of the eyes of everyone, so out of prying eyes. So he finds this planet, which Cara happens to be there too, kind of looking for the same thing, just a way station where they can be out of the galaxy's, eyes. And they find common ground there in a lovely little village. Aw, it was so cute. But yeah, Cara herself, she wasn't pulling any punches. She can take care of herself. It was very clear that she did that. And I remember from our last episode, we were talking about Cara and how the director, Bryce Dallas Howard, they had worked together to kind of finesse Cara's costume. And I thought they did a great job. What did you guys think of her outfit?
So awesome. I would dress up like that. As long as I can have her eye makeup and her hair like that.
Okay.
I'm doing it. No helmets, no masks.
Yeah, that's true. Masks mess up your hair.
True. They do. They do.
I feel like we posted this in Fangirls Going Rogue Facebook page, and I feel like there's a general consensus from the responses. So here's a couple. Sharita Cross, she's a badass and I'm dying to know more about her past. And then Brandy Smith Dugan, she was a badass but also feminine and approachable, great character. So it feels like that's kind of a theme on how people are taking this character, which I think Gina is in a way. I feel like a lot of times Star Wars types casts, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Shane Fitch actually says the same thing. He says, absolutely, yes, she's a total badass. One of the other things, too, if you pay really close attention, Donald Wicks brought it up, that she has a Rebel Firebird symbol tattooed on her cheek.
Right.
Which is awesome. Mm-hmm. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Lisa Solinger says that she looks real and relatable. Which, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sometimes in Star Wars, you get these alien creatures, you get these really crazy hairstyles and things. And yeah, she definitely looks like something like, yeah, Teresa, you could cosplay her pretty easily.
I know, right? Finally somebody I can cosplay in Star Wars. I mean, I know Gina Carano is Italian, but still, she's got that tone to her skin, and that's my hair color. You know, and I can make that face that I used in the picture we posted. I can make that face.
What, the I have spoken face?
Yeah, the I have spoken face. It's whatever.
Gold Bubble has a Cara Dune inspired dress.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
They also have a leggings and a crop top. And I saw it and I'm like, that's cool. But I'm kind of moving away from super form fitting stuff at the moment. So I'm like, meow. I need something else, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to our interviews roundtable with the cast, you hear Gina talk about when the moment she decided to take her acting seriously, this role came along.
Wow.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And I felt like, we got to kind of scratch the surface with this episode. And, obviously the Mandalorian knows that he can get her interested. Like there's a heart of gold, right? Well, there's some money in it for you. And it's not just about that because they don't have to stay, right?
Right.
They could have just, obviously she's surviving and trying to just get by. And then one of my favorite moments is when they're done and they're sitting out on the porch and she's kind of like the truth teller.
So what happens if you take that thing off? They come after you and kill you?
No. You just can't ever put it back on again.
So you can slip off the helmet and settle down with that beautiful young widow and raise your kid sitting here sipping spotchka?
You know, we raised some hell here a few weeks back. Word travels fast. We might want to cycle the charts and move on.
Wouldn't want to be the one who's got to tell him.
And I thought that was like a beautiful moment. Just the character and just the acting, because you can't just kind of like, you can't just say that line. Right?
No, yeah. Well, and I love how she said it. She was just like, that's not my life, but like, why don't you do that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. That was a lovely moment in the episode. That moment and the moment where the ATST red eyes are seen in the woods. Looks like, those are like the two moments that really stand out in that episode beyond Baby Yoda moments, which are always a standout.
Of course. Always.
How about the moment? So apparently Pedro Pascal did not film with Bryce Dallas Howard is what it's come out in some articles that most of that was a body double doing it, but
because he was working on another film.
Yeah, a good thing because she hit him so hard that one time his feet like bounced up and like kicked his own back. I'm like, oh, that hurts so bad.
She let it fly. It was awesome. That scene where they're fighting each other and then we get Baby Yoda sipping his bone broth was one of the best things I've ever seen. It's like blaster in each other's face and you just hear and you just look over and he's like, what's up, guys? What's going on?
That's amazing. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Now from our Instagram, one of the comments I really liked, Blue Nomi said, I did too, that she liked her. I like the fact they didn't make a big deal about her being a woman. She was treated like any male shock trooper or fighter, and I really hope she comes back. And I like that too. it was like, this is just her, and they just went right into it of pow, 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 pow.
Yeah. She is obviously if you've seen her fight, she's really strong, but you look, when I was standing next to her, the size of her leg muscles,
my God,
unbelievable. And, again, she talks about, she's like this strong woman. We talk about, strong female character. She's like, when we're talking about strong, like strength right there, but then, feminine and soft and vulnerable. I think we're going back to that same point, about characters being strong and vulnerable at the same time. But just like kind of when you look at it, like she could just be so many things and then kind of embody this moment, like Rebel shock troopers. Like, what were these? Like, why did they need these people?
Right? Yeah, what is a Rebel shock trooper? Do I even know what that is?
Well, it's kind of new to our understanding of Star Wars, but this is in that area post Return of the Jedi where, kind of the implication is that they had these troopers come in and, try to enforce that the New Republic was the new regime, maybe to push out some, they were in there to fight the stormtroopers, left of the Imperial remnants, but, good changes for good sometimes require people to do bad things. And that's sort of the kind of, we just get kind of a flavor of that in her dialogue. I've seen things and I don't want to, like she doesn't necessarily want to be part of those things anymore. Like, is the New Republic becoming the problem that the Imperial was? You know, do we just replace it with more of the same? Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think we need to learn more about her character. So
Yes. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but like, so during these episodes, I knew that we were going to have Cara Dune coming up. I knew that we were going to have Fennec coming up. And what I kind of expected in my headcanon was that the Mandalorian would go and kind of like pick up these people as part of his crew. And that didn't end up happening, at least so far. So I'm not like torn over that. But I'm a little sad. I'm like, oh, I wish we could see more of these characters, because I really want to know more about Cara and Fennec, and if she's dead, Fennec, or not. But yeah, I just want to know, you know, I want to see them more. And I wish he would have a crew of these ladies.
I don't think they did a very good job of setting expectations on that, but that was kind of like the mystery box around the show, is they decided they didn't want people to know. But you could tell, like, the way she's like, I worked with Bryce Dallas Howard, and then like I'm like doing the math, I'm like, well, she's episode 4, so, and then knew that, you know, obviously we had the Fennec Shand, we knew that was coming, but then, you know, how things played out with that. So I think eventually we're going to get the band together, but just their kind of intention of they were trying to do this like serial Flash Gordon, little episodic adventures, but they didn't really like, I think they could have done a better job of setting that expectation probably. Cause yeah, definitely after you see it and you're like, oh, this is only a half hour. That doesn't give you a lot of time for quote, like the A-team type of dynamic, right? Where
yes,
I'm hoping we'll get to the A-team type of dynamic where we have the bunch of crew together.
I agree.
All right. Well, I think we've come to the end of another episode, but Yub Cubs, you can expect so much from us, because I don't know if you guys know, but as of this recording, The Rise of Skywalker comes out in 10 days. 9 days if we're going on a Thursday. As you guys know, we will be doing episodes about that like immediately after we see it and all of those awesome things. So you can visit us over at fangirlsgoingrogue.com to see everything that's going on. You can find us on Twitter. We're at FG Going Rogue. Trisha is at Fangirl Cantina. I am at Ice Cold Penguin. Sarah is at Jedi Tink. And Sandra, our social media manager, is at Geek Chic 9.
You can leave us a voicemail if you have thoughts on the Rise of Skywalker or the end of The Mandalorian, which is the week after, 33121 Ewoks or 331-213-9657. You can email us, contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com. Facebook, just type Fangirls Going Rogue, and Tumblr, fangirlsgoingrogue.tumblr.com.
You can also find us on Instagram. We are at FG Going Rogue. And you can also join our Facebook group, which is where we asked our questions today. So head to Facebook and search for Fangirls Going Rogue group, request to join, and answer the questions that pop up.
And please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. We need your reviews so more people can find us.
So until next time, when you see the Rise of Skywalker, da 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 da, yub,
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 yub.
Although he is coming out in, what is it called? The Wild?
Oh.
Did you? Oh, because you don't see.
Yeah,
trailers.
It's about that one like dog wolf thing. And he's like out living as a hermit and some stuff. Yeah, that was like basically the trailer. Like, I'm like, okay, so he's a hermit guy living in the mountains, and there's a dog, and he gets along well with said dog, and like some stuff happens.
It's Harrison Ford.
So we're gonna watch it. Okay.